All right, what's going on, guys? Graham GSM Matthews here from Bleacher Report WrestleRant Radio. And today we're talking to the new WWE Champion as of Monday's Raw, Big E. What's going on, man? Welcome to the show.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. We're coming off less than 12 hours ago. You're the new WWE Champion. What's running through your mind right now?
The fact that I need some sleep. That's my thought. But no, it's been a whirlwind, man. Just man, the outpouring of love has been almost overwhelming. But I'm so grateful for fans, for my peers, for everyone who's sent texts or DMs or even just seeing reaction videos on Twitter has been extremely humbling. So I'm so thankful.
So the last time that we spoke was right after you won the Money in the Bank briefcase, which was less than 2 months ago, which is wild to even think about because the time just kind of flies by. And you were saying at that point that a lot like when you won the tag titles for the first time, or maybe it was the second time after SummerSlam 2015, I think you said, with the New Day. You kind of had that moment in your hotel room to really let it sink in. You had that when you won Money in the Bank. Did you have that last night as well after becoming WWE Champion?
Yeah, no, I definitely had. I'm so grateful again. Like the fact that Kofi and Woods were there for that. So I had a moment with them afterwards, after the show went off the air, doing interviews and whatnot, just having that moment with them. And then, just getting back to my hotel about 1 a.m, and man, even just sharing things with my friends who, so many of them have been along, so over these years for the journey, and had been so supportive of me. So yeah, I had a moment at the hotel where I was struggling to get some sleep for the next couple hours, still buzzing. That very familiar feeling you were mentioning, a similar feeling to how it was in Brooklyn after SummerSlam in 2015. So yeah, it's had a moment to, and it's really, for me, the buzzword that comes to mind is gratitude. I'm just extremely grateful. Because no one gets here alone. There's so many people who helped me grow. And, I did an interview and I talked about, Michael Tarver back in like 2010, who sat with me and helped me better understand how I should carry myself and how he saw me. And he's just wearing like Black Superman. And I didn't, he believed in me probably more than I believed in myself then. And there's so many people along the way who just helped me in my craft, who supported me. And I'm grateful for all of them because, like I said, I don't get here without them. And obviously, Woods and Cole are the first two that come to mind. And I'm grateful for everyone who's helped me.
Well, that's awesome, man. Well, you mentioned Michael Tarver right there. That's a hell of a throwback for fans that have been watching for a long time. And I know, obviously, you've mentioned New Day quite a bit as well. You mentioned that on Raw Talk last night. Every opportunity you get, every interview you do, you always mention how you guys were struggling to make TV. And look at where you are today. The new WWE Champion. Kofi was just champion 2 years ago. So it's cool to say. I know you've also mentioned before that with compliments and stuff like that, you're not the best. You don't know how to handle it. You don't know how to, respond to it type of thing. Did you have like a weird feeling getting all like the timeline last night was blowing up, even more so than when you won Money in the Bank? I think people kind of knew what was coming at that point, obviously cashing in and becoming champion, but you don't know that it's going to happen until it happens. So you mentioned the feedback that you got. Is it kind of like a weird thing too, that you don't know how to respond to all of it and it's just overwhelming, or is it all just positivity?
No, so I'm working on being better at accepting compliments because I'm someone who very much believes in giving people their flowers while they can still smell them. And if I'm going to preach that, I need to do a better job of accepting it. So that's been the focus for me, is just accepting everything. And it's been so beautiful. It's been so much positivity. And everyone being so incredibly kind and thoughtful, and I'm very grateful for all of it.
So you mentioned after Raw went off the air, you had this celebration moment with the fans. Kofi and Woods are out there, which was just a great moment to close the show. Then what happened after the show as well. But you walk through the backstage area. What does that area look like with the outpouring of support that you must have gotten as the new WWE Champion?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's late. It's after 11 by the time I was done glad handing and thanking everyone at ringside. It was probably almost 11:30. But Gorilla was still full of people there. Talent and producers and so many people who were there and supportive. And so yeah, it's awesome getting love from your peers, people who are great at their craft and who work hard too. And yeah, so Gorilla was definitely full. And again, I'm trying to think of other words besides grateful, but it keeps coming back to that.
I mean, that's probably the best word to use. I mean, so you get past that, you walk through Gorilla. What's your phone look like when you're picking that up and you're seeing all these messages, tweets, text calls? What's your phone looking like after you become champion?
I had 144 missed texts. That is not to mention any of the Twitter DMs, any of the Twitter messages, any of the Instagram DMs, anything else. So there's a lot to get back to everyone, but I'm so grateful for every single message, and I don't want to take any of those for granted. I'm still working on going through. I had a 4-hour ride from Boston to Brooklyn, and I still couldn't get through all the messages. So for anyone I haven't got back to, I'm sorry. I'm working on it. But yeah, it's a part of me keeps waiting for the other shoe to drop. Surely there's got to be a ton of negative messages somewhere. Maybe it's the quality filters that are keeping them from my eyes, but everyone has been so overwhelmingly positive.
Well, I can tell you, man, coming from a fan perspective, I don't think those negative messages exist. I mean, we've seen a lot of cash-ins, we've seen a lot of title wins, and there's been some great support for a lot of former champions. I haven't seen it quite to this level for you becoming champion, my man, and just how well-liked you are among the fan base, and I'm sure among your peers as well. It's just an amazing thing to see. Any surprising people you're like, I can't believe this person messaged me, or this person I haven't heard from in a long time? Just all the feedback that you've gotten from that, and people that you weren't expecting to hear from that you probably never thought you would hear from again.
There's some people like that for sure. For the most part, it's a lot of people that I still fairly regularly talk to. But yeah, man, I'll always geek for Ric Flair text. I got a Ric Flair text a few months ago. Oh, for Money in the Bank, he texted me, and he texted me again last night. So that's always when it's Ric Flair. Getting a Ric Flair text is pretty ridiculous. So that one I was grateful for. But yeah, there are people who used to work here that did reach out and said some really positive things. AJ Lee, who I still talk to fairly regularly too, and definitely consider her a friend. She reached out and said some really beautiful things. So everyone has just been so incredibly nice, and yeah. Again, I'm trying to get better at not bristling and squirming and deflecting. Yeah. So I'm working on that.
That's cool, man. I mean, for the fact that you won it at the Garden in Boston, I've seen many shows there. I went to college in that area. I saw you and Kofi defend the tag titles there at TLC 6 years ago at this point in that amazing ladder match against the Lucha Dragons and I think the Usos. Among other matches, you faced John Cena for the United States Championship there a few years ago as well. Was there any significance to have that moment in that building for you in the Boston area, or is it just kind of another arena?
No, for sure. I mean, the Garden is legendary, but also I have so much family there. My mom went to DC and Tufts. I have so many of my mom's side of the family who moved to Boston. My sister, unfortunately, because it was so last minute, she didn't have enough time, but she lives there. My other sister used to live in Boston, but she just moved to work on her doctorate at Maryland. But yeah, so I have a lot of Boston connections too. Obviously, Kofi, he's born in Ghana, but so much of his life grew up in Boston. So there are a lot of Boston connections. So yeah, and it felt cool to do it there.
So you mentioned before about having, that other shoe potentially drop, and you're kind of waiting for it to drop now. Were you waiting for that after you became Money in the Bank 2 months ago? Because it's obviously a pretty strong track record of people that have cashed in and become champion. But in recent years, Otis had won it. He didn't become champion among other people. Are you thinking in the back of your mind, there's a chance they won't cash in and you're not kind of getting your hopes up until it happens? Like you weren't, let's say you weren't getting too excited until you actually became champion, or what was going through your mind even at that point?
I didn't really worry too much about it. I will say, not to sound arrogant, but people would have been upset if I failed my casting. And it would not have been a good move. So I didn't think that was really going to happen. I thought, you never know. It's always a possibility. But it's also for me, I kind of see it as it's just a wasteful, not positive emotion or character trait to worry about those things that I can't control. So, I just tried to do the best I could while I had the briefcase. And of course it was briefly stolen from me, so I had to get it back quickly. But I didn't spend too much time worrying about it, mostly because I felt like it was inevitable.
Well, I can back that up, man. I think it would have been incredibly dumb had you cashed in and it not worked out. I mean, it made for an amazing moment on Monday. Thankfully, that did not happen. We got
Yeah.
what we got. You mentioned earlier how last minute it was. You mentioned your sister, stuff like that. Talk to me about how last minute this was, because obviously you announced on Twitter in the afternoon that you'd be cashing in later that night and on Raw. Obviously, we've seen you on SmackDown for the last year. You've teased both champions, but more largely Roman Reigns interacting with Paul Heyman. How last minute was last night's whole ordeal?
Well, I did not even. So I was, when I started this loop, my intention was I was supposed to be home Monday morning after the live event Sunday, and so yeah, I, realized I was going to Raw kind of last minute and thought, let's. So that was a bit of a last minute decision, and there was also the option of maybe, hey, I go out there and just do some teasing, and then I'll come back later when it's time to actually cash in, or go back to SmackDown and cash in there. So I wasn't really sure. It was really kind of like an afternoon that day decision, and then it all happened very, very quickly. So yeah, this definitely for me was not something that was set in stone days and days ahead.
Mm-hmm. And it's cool too, because we've seen so many cash-ins over the years, but I don't know if I can recall a single time where someone has said earlier in the day, I mean, people have said, oh, I'll cash in at this pay-per-view, blah, blah, blah. But no one has ever said, I'm going to cash in on this show tonight, and then actually gone on to cash in, because, you never know what might happen. It might not actually happen, or, whatever, because it's live TV, but you cashed in, you became champion. That was really cool. So take me through that mindset and how unique of a cash-in it was. It wasn't just the surprise cash-in. I mean, it got people excited looking forward to Raw. It was a great way to close the show. The reaction was awesome. Kind of talk me through that and how cool it was to kind of announce your cash-in in advance, cash in and, actually cash in. And not only that, but become champion.
Yeah, so I'm a big proponent of setting your intentions to start the day. So I thought, why not set my intentions to become a world champion? But I just want to do things uniquely. I think a lot of people clamored for me to be a world champion or to be in this position, but that I needed to be more serious and to fit a certain mold. And my thing as a performer is and one of the lessons I learned as a member of the New Day in our journey was, honestly, it was so much more rewarding to do it our way. There's so many people who told us back in 2014 that we needed to be a certain way or to carry ourselves a certain way, or even that Kofi should get rid of me and would. So we were stubborn about wanting to do things our way and in a way that felt right and genuine to us. And those are lessons that I carried over as a singles competitor. And I want my run to feel unique. I don't want to feel like I had to shave off the edges of who I am to fit a certain mold. And so it felt like a bit of a unique way to handle the cash in. And I also want my championship run to have a bit of that same feeling, to feel a little bit different than everyone else's. So that's my hope.
Yeah, not only that too. I mean, the gradual ascent that you've had over the last year is just amazing. I mean, we've spoken I've spoken to you 4 times over the last year. The first one being after you first went to SmackDown, kind of branched off on your own. The second time as Intercontinental Champion going into WrestleMania. The last time is Money in the Bank 2 months ago, and now is the WWE Champion. So your thoughts on not only being WWE Champion now, but the ascent that it took to get there. And you don't ordinarily see that nowadays, I feel. Some people just kind of skyrocket to the top, or kind of have to really, it takes a couple of years. I mean, obviously you've been here for a very long time, but kind of take me through that process of starting out on SmackDown and then gradually working your way up to this point, and then it for all just kind of fall into place the way that it did.
I think the thing that I love is that it feels earned. I know, there are parts of me, I look back at that, my initial ascent into the main roster, and there are times where I thought, I was ready. But in many ways, I'm not going to say I wasn't ready for the main roster. I felt like I was, but maybe at times I wasn't as ready as I thought. So I feel like in many ways I've grown as a performer on the mic. I've grown in ring. I'm just more comfortable than I was even a couple years ago. And so I really have enjoyed this run because it feels earned. And Edge texted me something pretty similar to that. Like, it's sweeter because it took so long. And maybe it would have also felt as good if this happened 3-4 years ago. But I wouldn't go out of my way to change anything. I'm glad it wasn't easy. And I think that's a big reason that so many people are behind me, because it's such a long time coming, that it's not, I wasn't skyrocketed to the very top out of the gate, that it took me some time to get here. And I'm appreciative for all the missteps, the ups and the downs, and all of it. It led me to this position now, and I'm grateful for all of it. I wouldn't change any of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like you said, everything happens for a reason. It was a lot like Kofi's story as well, being in WWE for over 10 years, 11 years, whatever it was at that point. And you've been here for, on the main roster anyway, and you've been in the company for a lot longer than that, but on the main roster for almost a decade, 9 years coming up this December, and you're WWE champion. So it's really cool to see. And like you said, I think the longer it takes sometimes, the more it's going to mean ultimately. But you mentioned before, like people were saying in the beginning, oh, you got to be more serious in order to become a world champion. Obviously, you proved them wrong on that. People thinking, oh, the New Day has to split up for anyone to become champion. You guys proved them wrong on that. Why are there still people thinking, I mean, even going into the show last night when you announced your cash in, I was still seeing people saying that, oh, maybe Kofi's going to turn on Big E and cost him the briefcase. Why are still people thinking that you guys are going to break up? It's been 7 years at this point. It's not happening.
Yeah, I don't know why either. I mean, there's so many other routes to go that I think work, because if we had listened to people, or people got their way years ago, when and we broke up, I'm not saying, like, Kofi still obviously would have deserved his world championship run, but we wouldn't have been able to tell that story in the same way. I just think, us, even beyond our selfish desire to be together, because we love being together, we love each other. I just think it gives you more options now. As we got to tell the story of brotherhood. We got to go through this tag team gauntlet match 2 years ago to earn another man a world championship run. That to me is so unique, and not many people could pull it off well, just because we have such a long story together, because we reiterate every moment we can how much we love each other. So I think telling a different story, a story of brotherhood, three guys who didn't grow up as blood brothers, but we found a real bond with each other, it gives us options. And now, because we're so resistant to these ideas and inclinations to break us up or turn on each other, now you have this opportunity where we can look across the pond or look across the brand and see a potential incredible rivalry with the bloodline. We also, if it's up to me, the Hurt Business is getting back ASAP. That's another possibility. Those guys are. So now we have these multiple options. And the beautiful thing is you can do singles matches, you can do tag matches, you can do six-man. You just have so many options to tell so many great stories. So, I'm glad that we fought every desire, every instance of people wanting us to turn on each other. It's just not something that just don't hold your breath. It's over. Just let it all go. Let all that stuff go, because that's not in the cards for it.
Yeah, I think maybe just because it's wrestling and people think, oh, everyone's got to turn on each other at some point, and not in every single instance. And obviously you guys have been the exception to the rule in that case, not just with fans, but I know you mentioned in an interview, I think with TalkSport a couple of months ago, going to Money in the Bank, that there was a pitch for you guys to break up from the top. I don't know, maybe it was around Kofi's time as champion, for that whole turn to happen. Is that even still being pitched not to this day, but like up to recent times? Or is that something even the companies realize, listen, all right, we're not going to do this because we think it'd be a bad idea?
It's honestly something that I haven't even heard recently, so I'm not even sure. But I'm assuming that people just know how we feel and aren't going to push it. But there are a lot of things to consider beyond that. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. You're talking about the end of the New Day podcast and all the opportunities that we're currently in, all the potential future opportunities. I just think we're a really unique group. Not to pat ourselves on the back too hard, but I don't think you see three guys as talented as we are, who are as close as we are in this business, that aren't related, that after 7 years we're not annoyed with each other, we're not at each other's necks. I don't know why you would want to waste all of that to do a simple turn on each other, and then what, in 6 months, then you've exactly. You've broken up this great thing. So it doesn't make much sense to me.
Yeah, exactly. Especially long term, it just doesn't make any sense. So you mentioned before, like all the potential matches with the Bloodline and a potential Hurt Business, which would be absolutely awesome. I'm not even sure if you know this at this point, but coming off of last night, do you know if you're classified as a Raw superstar becoming the WWE champion? Are you taking the title to SmackDown? Do you know what the immediate plan is for your future as champion and what brand you're assigned to, I guess?
That is a great question. My assumption is I am now a Raw guy.
Mm-hmm.
Until I hear differently, then but yes, that's my assumption is now. As much I really love my time on Blue, and I think I was on SmackDown at least the last 4 years.
Yeah.
So really appreciative. I love that show and such an incredible roster. But now it looks like my time is here on Raw, and I'm excited to do all the things with Cope and Woods. I'm excited for just, man, there's so many now. There's just the whole avenue of different guys that I can mix it up with now. So as far as I know, again, I want to say 99.5% of me, I'm purely a Raw guy. But as I'm sure you know, in this business and in this industry, you never really quite know. But yes,
Exactly.
that's as far as I know, I'm a Raw guy.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll find out for sure. I mean, you could very well be on SmackDown for now. It was just announced last night. We got the draft coming up in a couple of weeks in early October. So literally anything can change between now and then. So we'll find out in due time. You mentioned earlier, I mean, when you won Money in the Bank 2 months ago, we saw all the teases in the last couple of months. You and Paul Heyman kind of teasing at Roman, cashing in on him. This whole thing last night was a last minute thing, as you mentioned earlier. So was the Paul Heyman teases supposed to be a red herring as far as you knew, or obviously you were leaving your options open as far as who you can cash in on. But were the Paul Heyman teases supposed to be a red herring, or was that even hinting at a potential, cash in on Roman had the opportunity presented itself whenever that might have been?
It's hard to really say what the intention was.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, it just made sense to keep your options open, especially if I'm going to be on SmackDown. Why not? Why not do something? And Paul is such a great foil for all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I called him in an interview. I called him the John Stockton of WWE because he's just dishing out dimes and making me look good and just setting people up. And that's what he does so well. So I don't know what the intention was supposed to be. I can't really speak to that because
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of in the dark there. But I'm glad if we didn't get to go that route with the cash in on Roman, but I'm glad we at least got to lead people that way, have some fun, and just even me just being a part of the stuff with him and Kayla. I'm really enjoying their budding rivalry, and being able to jump in some of those was a lot of fun. But it was I guess it was a bit of a false flag, but I'm not sure if that was the intention always.
Yeah, and it obviously worked out well in the end because it was a massive swerve when we saw you last night become champion. As we wind down here, man, one last, a couple last cool things here, especially last night. It was noted by a lot of people on Twitter, as you probably know, and becoming only the 4th Black WWE champion in history, taking the title from only the 3rd Black WWE champion in history. Has that sunk in for you yet, making history? I mean, obviously you did when you won Money in the Bank. We discussed that a few months ago. But as far as last night's accomplishment goes, you've obviously probably realized that, but how cool has that got to be for you, making history? And it's at this point, it's just a normal thing, which is also a cool thing as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the hope, is that it just becomes the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been cool this year. I feel like there's been a lot of focus on Black wrestlers and them getting their due, and I guess us. I guess I'm one of them, so I should say us. But yes, that is. It's been a really beautiful thing to see in WWE and outside of WWE. And I love that when I look around and I see, first of all, hats off to Bobby on one incredible run. He was a hell of a champion. He looked the part. He performed the part. I really love the stuff he did with the Hurt Business and as a singles. I think he did a killer job throughout. But I love that I can look around at Sasha and Bianca and the Bobbies and Kofi and Woods and even like Cedric and I love that it's not, here are guys or men and women that are being put in these positions simply to hit a certain number or certain quota. To me, when I look around, I think, man, these are just undeniable talents. These people, these like Black wrestlers who are given these opportunities in the championships, it's just clear that they deserve these chances. And that's what I love. I love that we've gotten to this point. And there are just so many more in the last several years on our rosters. And I think it's pretty dope.
100%, man. It's really cool to see. And last question for you. You mentioned last night and how quick it was, and the celebration really was. I mean, you had the celebration after the match, but it was a quick turnaround. We're speaking at noon on Tuesday, and you just drove to Brooklyn and all this other stuff. When you find the time, whenever that might be, how do you plan on celebrating your WWE Championship victory?
Oh man, for me, I'm very boring. Honestly, I'm very boring and things are low key. My idea of celebrating is just being able to see my friends and my loved ones and say thank you, man. I owe some people some FaceTime and some calls, and I'm sure we'll do that. And that's really that's what fills me up. That's what makes me feel most whole and most fulfilled. Is just like people who have supported me and have cared for me for all these years, who are so genuinely excited for me, means the world. So that's all I really want to do is be around the people that I adore.
You love to see it. That's awesome, man. And one last thing, too. Big thanks on behalf of everyone that I've seen, show support for it. For the podcast that you guys did yesterday on mental health, it was the full episodes available on WWE's YouTube channel. But in honor of the late great Daphne, I thought that was really cool for you guys to do.
Well, thank you, man. It's something that I think we all felt was appropriate, and for me, for so long, I felt this kind of just lingering shame. If anyone knew, how much I'd struggled with my mental health and depression. But, I really feel blessed to be in this position, to have this platform. And if anyone can benefit at all from just hearing our stories and knowing, our past struggles, it's not just me. Kobe spoke to kind of some of his experiences and Woods also with his struggles with mental health. So my hope is that we can be an example for others that, you can find peace, you can find success in your career, in your personal life, even though you struggle with your mental health. So, I just hope we continue to have more of these conversations to break that stigma, that more people realize that you're not a burden, that we want to see you get the help you need and deserve. So that was just our goal, was just to continue that conversation. Especially in our industry. There are a lot of people who suffer in silence, whether they be performers or fans. And it's just really been so heartwarming for the people. We've had people reach out and say, hey, you saved us. Whether it was someone just randomly clicking through and seeing us and something about our performance or us putting a smile on their face. And that's so incredibly rewarding because there are a lot of times that, entertainment was really an escape for me. And if we can provide that for others as well, that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, we just want to do our part in continuing that conversation.
That's awesome, man. Well, like I said, we all appreciate it on behalf of everyone. I got to thank you for that. And this has been great, dude. Thanks so much for the time. You're the new WWE champion. We look forward to seeing you every Monday, Friday, whatever brand you end up on as the new WWE champion. Big E, thanks a lot, man. It's always such a pleasure talking to you. Congrats again. You absolutely deserve it.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.